Boom, coming in hot, Chinchy. How we doing, man?
Yeah, dude, you're on a roll, man. You have cool friends who are really good at sports, and we have another one coming on today. This is like so cool. I'm really excited. Who we got? What's happening?
Oh man, this is a big one for me, brother. This guy, I feel like I've known this guy his whole life. We can go back to when he was in high school. This guy and I go back together. This guy's from Pittsburgh, obviously my hometown, from the town next to me in Mount Lebanon. Was a first-round pick of the Cubs, 2015. One of the best players in Major League Baseball right now. He in 2018 hit the first pitch of the season, dude. First pitch of the season.
Yes.
Gone.
Awesome.
What an unbelievable moment. 6 years in the show. 2022 went to his first All-Star game, just won his first Gold Glove. Only the fourth outfielder, Cubs outfielder ever to win that honor. And dude, this guy's got so many great things coming ahead of him, and he's a hell of a golfer too. So let's bring him in, my friend, good buddy Ian Happ. What's up, Happer? How you doing, man?
What's up? Thanks for having me on.
Dude, thanks for coming on, man. So, dude, we were just talking before we got going that you were just out golfing. If anyone doesn't know out there, Ian Happ is an incredible golfer. And I think you'll be like the John Smoltz when you're done playing, like on the senior tour, like Smoltz is doing. But you were at the Hilton Grand Invitation, right? How did that go?
Yeah, it was the Hilton Grand Vacations, and it's the LPGA like Tournament of Champions. So everybody who's won in the last 2 years on the LPGA gets the invite to play in it. So Lester has played in it for, I don't know, 5 years now. But when we were playing together, John he'd walk me through the tournament and the shots and so we would be on the back of the plane, like talking about this. And finally last year he was like, "Hey man, I think I got you the invite." So I got invited to play this year. First time playing a like 4-day play your own ball event. It is stressful. Oh,
Why? Why is it so stressful?
It's, you got to make the short putts. You got people watching, you're on the first tee getting announced. There's all of the, like, you spend the whole off season kind of getting away from like the competitive juices, and you're like, yeah, this is nice. I'm just living normal life. And then you get thrown right back into people are watching, everything matters. It's like the heart's going. Whoa.
Are you terrified of like ripping one into the gallery and knocking somebody out? Like that seems to me like the most terrifying thing, with like standing on that line with those like two parallel groups of human beings. That scares the shit out of me every time I see somebody do it.
It's not like I'm not afraid of like duck hooking one into somebody's face. It's more like you don't want to top one off the tee and then people are like, "Why are you here?" You don't just like stick it in the ground, chunk one 5 feet, and people are like, you shouldn't be out here.
Was it more stressful for you than like hitting in the big leagues because it's your second sport?
Yeah, because like when you play baseball every day for the last 20 years of your life, like it's what you do. Like you go out there, it's kind of more of a buzz in a big league stadium. There's not like nothing's really sticking out. It's more white noise. It's what we do. So there's not as much nerves for just playing baseball all the time. You go out there and put a golf club in your hand, the ball's not moving, and things start to really speed up on you.
Now, are fans allowed? Is it when you're hitting in the big leagues, especially if you're on the road or at home, people might be cheering, "Let's go, Hap, you're the man," or "You suck, Hap." Is it weird golfing when there's like silence, right?
Yeah. So people are like, you're walking to the tee, people are like, "Go Cubbies." And it was like, "Yeah, go Cubbies. I love this." And then you get over your ball and it's like nothing. And it's just you and the little white ball. It's a long 4 days. I mean, you're walking 18 holes, the rounds take 5 hours. There's a lot of time to think. And the one thing I realized playing your own ball, because I've played some competitive stuff where you have a partner. And so like if you stink, generally my partner's been a pro or someone that's like better than me and like plays golf more often than I do. And like they're making the par. And if I can help out, like great. But it's really like I'm the supporting cast there. When it's just you, man, I mean, if you hit a bad shot, it's not like baseball where you get to go in the tunnel. Maybe if something bad happens, you can have some words with yourself.
Yeah.
You can let it eat a little bit. And you're out there by yourself. There's no time in between shots to really like, you just have to get ready for the next one. Maybe you have 2 minutes in between shots to get ready. You don't have a couple innings to go stand in the outfield and let it eat on yourself. So it was really different.
That's so great. Well, I always say like baseball is like, golf in a team environment, right? You're sitting there alone. You're always standing alone. You're in the batter's box. You're on the mound. You're in the field. You're alone. It's like you're alone over your ball. Who was good? Who were some other good players that were there? Like some of the guys, some of the, baseball players or whoever.
Yeah, well, Marty Fish won, former tennis player. He's a stick. I mean, he's an
Wow.
absolute player. And then you had Mulder played really well, Urlacher played really well, Brian McCann, BMAC played really well.
B-Mac's good, huh?
Yeah, Josh Donaldson has a really nice swing. He played well. There's a lot of former baseball players out there. It was cool to get to like I'd spent a little time because of Lester. I'd spent a little time around like some of those guys that played in Boston and on those good teams, but got a chance to spend a lot of time with Beckett. He's awesome.
Great dude.
And BMAC, obviously Kevin Millar's out in Austin, so he was there. Got to play with Tom Glavine one day, which is really cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Glav's good too, isn't he?
yeah, he's a player too. Like that whole so Smoltz, Glavin, and Maddox were there from that
So
Braves
cool.
rotation. And got a chance to talk to them a little bit. And obviously play with Glavin for a day. So to walk 18 holes with him and
That's
hear his stories is pretty cool.
Dude, you're lucky because when I hear Smoltz, Glavin, Maddox, when we used to go into Atlanta, be like, who we facing? Like, oh shit, we're
Yeah,
facing Smoltz, Glavin, and Maddox. We got the bad draw.
yeah, it give you nightmares. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I'm
like
like, oh, you know, you got Glavin. He's just gonna trying to paint away, change up, get you off, up and in, but he's staying outside. You got Maddox throwing balls you've never seen before. Like, are we playing wiffle ball and freaking 12 years old here? Like, balls are behind me, and then Smoltz is just pumping 98 with a split finger for you, trying to punch out on 3 pitches. Your head's spinning,
yeah. Beckett was talking about like when he would pitch against those guys, he was like he didn't want to pitch against Maddox or Glavin because they got this massive strike zone because they would just start like nibbling,
Yeah,
nibbling,
yeah.
nibbling. And he was
Off,
like, I'm pitching.
off, off.
Yeah, he's like, I don't get that. He's like, I just get the strike zone. These guys are getting 2 extra plates.
It's so true, man. I remember facing Glav a couple times before they tightened up the strike zone, and I was on top of the dish, and I'd be looking out, I'd look middle away, react in, and I'm looking out there, and Glavin would paint the black, and they'd go strike, and then they all of a sudden, as my next at bat, it would be like 3 balls off, and I tell the ump, hey, I'm looking out there, like I literally am looking there, like that is not a strike. He's like, yeah, it is. I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. That's three
Yeah,
balls off.
yeah. Beckett was talking about going back in with the VHS tape and like rewinding, and like having to send it into the league office. Like, that's not a strike. Look, it's not a strike. Now we're in the dugout on iPads, just like
Yeah.
throwing them on the field. You're like,
So true, man. It's so true. It's so great. Happer, I want to go back to your season this year, man. Like your first All-Star game, your first Gold Glove. Take us back to that, man. Like for you, I got a chance to see you out at the Field of Dreams game. It was so great to see you out there, and we were talking about going to the All-Star game and everything. And just take us back to the All-Star game and what that was like for you, and was there a certain moment at that game you're like, man, this is really cool?
it was such a special experience. I mean, to have that honor and to have that attached to you for the rest of your career, to be an all-star, like it's something that you dream about as a kid. And one of those memories, like as a kid, you're watching the games and you get to see the guys be on the field for the home run derby. And so when I was out there the day before at the derby, and Pujols is in the derby, and like getting to watch him in his last all-star game, like a little kid, like enjoying every second of it, being out there and going like, holy, like I watched this growing up. Like this was, turned on the TV in 2005, 2006, going, this guy's hitting in the home run derby and in all-star games. And then to be able to be a part of his last one, be in the same roster on the same team. It was just like such a surreal moment. And, I think I told you this when we were in Iowa for that game. One of my memories as a kid, I came to your house and you were stocking me up on batting gloves before going to play
Yeah.
my first summer in Cape Cod. And you showed me your all-star jerseys that you had at the house, and they were signed by all those guys. And that was such a cool memory for me. And then to be able to whatever it was, 10 years later, be in an all-star game myself, and get to wear that jersey, and be on the field with those guys it was so cool.
That is so cool, man. Yeah, I know how time flies. It seems like yesterday that you were at my house and you were in high school or in college, going college, came back to hit, and next thing you know that stuff is incredible. Did you get? I remember, getting all that stuff signed. Did you? What was the cool? What were some of the cool items that you end up getting signed?
Yeah, I did the jersey. So I did the jersey that was signed
Yes.
by everybody, and that's kind of the coolest thing. Like, there's team ball, there's a lineup card, and it was pretty cool being a switch hitter. And so you look at the lineup card, right? And you have the lefties on the one side and the righties on the other side, and then switch hitters are in the middle. And on the National League side, I was the switch hitter on the lineup card, and on the American League side, it was Jose Ramirez. And so,
Oh,
like, that was a really cool thing when I was looking at the card. But I got that signed, and then the jersey is probably the coolest thing.
that's awesome, man. Yeah, it's funny, man. You will cherish that jersey forever, forever. I still have mine. It's incredible. Also, too, you won a Gold Glove, and I think it's funny. It's funny looking back because when back when you were in high school, you played shortstop. Then you went to University of Cincinnati, you played short. Then you played a little outfield, and then when you got to the big leagues, you kind of did everything initially. And now you win a Gold Glove in left field. And mind you, um, only four Chicago Cubs have ever won the Gold Glove. Jason Hayward's won it twice. Bobby Dernier and the Hawk and
Oh,
Andre Dawson. Dude, what about for you, man? Like not really being a true outfielder, coming up as a kid. What did that mean for you to win the Gold Glove in left field?
yeah,
In the wind too, right? In the Chicago winds, that's not the easiest play to play outfield in the world.
yeah,
Right?
which is one of the reasons only four guys have won it.
Yeah.
It was so cool, but coming up, I always wanted to be an infielder, right? Like, you're a shortstop, you take pride in being a shortstop, and then when I got drafted as a second baseman. I hadn't really played infield in a year and a half. But it was, hey, you're going to learn how to play second base in the minor leagues. So I spent all of my time playing second base in the minor leagues for, a year and a half. And I get to the big leagues on a team that had just won the World Series. Obviously, studs all over the field, right? You got guys all over the place. And Joe Madden's our manager. So you kind of know going in that you're going to play multiple spots. You're just trying to find a way to get in the lineup as a young player on a team with just a ton of studs. And so I played my first game ever. I played right field in the big leagues, my debut. And then, I bounced to second. I played some center. I played left. It was National League with no DH. So there was a lot of double switching. I would start the game at second, and then, lefty would come in, Shore would go out, and I would go play left. Or we had all of these different ways that Joe would configure it. But in my first couple years, I ended up playing 7 different positions. I played some first when Riz would, need a blow. I played third when KB got hurt in 18. Played a lot of second, and then all 3 outfield spots. So, and then I pitched once.
Yeah, yeah.
So I played.
We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to
Yeah.
that.
So I played 7 spots, and I learned from Zobrist. But you're competing at every spot you play with the best player at that position, right? So you're competing. You're not like, no one's gonna say, "Oh, you're average. That's really awesome." Like, you're competing against a Nolan Arenado at third, and against Altuve or Ozzy Albies at second, and you go play center field. And like Albert Almore and I were splitting time. Albert's played center his whole life. Like, I'm bouncing to 7 different spots, right? And it's like, you're talking, it's like, I want to get in there more. And it's like, well, your defense. It's like, well, yeah, I'm playing 7 spots, man. I got to figure it out all over the place.
I'm a
So,
mess.
yeah. I don't even know what glove I have on today. So going and being able to play, after the trade deadline last year in 21, I got to play a little bit of center, but mostly left. I was kind of played left every day for the last month and a half. And then being able to come into camp, knowing I was going to play left field every day, knowing I was going to be able to really take ownership of that spot, understand how the wind works every single day, how the ball's coming off against lefties, against righties, where I'm going to position myself, like learning that. I spent a ton of time with our outfield coach and our defensive positioning guy, going over where I'm going to play, where the center fielder is going to be, how we're moving on different guys, like looking at guys' spray charts, and learning the position, understanding like when I needed to play farther back, and then it was easier for me to come in on balls or go to my right. And so I really got comfortable in that one spot. And it was something that I had always kind of said or believed is if I can just play one spot, I know I can be really good at it. Whether that's second base or center field or left field, if I can just lock in on one spot, I know I'll put the time and work in to be really good at it. So to be able to play, 158 games in one spot and really feel like it was not only I did it well, but it was recognized that I did it well. It was so cool, and I grew up as a shortstop, playing on an all dirt field, getting hit in the face with ground balls
Yeah.
over a wildcat.
Wildcat field, yeah. You're picking up rocks for practice. All right, let's get the rocks picked up first.
Yeah, so I don't wear one in the teeth. But I watched Omar Vizquel, and I was an Indians fan growing up, and so he was like my favorite player ever. Switch hitting shortstop that used the 9 3/4 glove and was net. So like the Gold Glove had always been something that was really like special to me. So to have one, it's downstairs in my house right now, like on the main, like to have one of those is so cool. And to be able to do it in the first year that I played one spot full time is awesome.
That's incredible. And like Chinch was saying, 81 games at Wrigley. What's it like playing at Wrigley? Because, dude, I just remember I played there a lot because I played in the Central most of my career. But I remember hitting some bullets there, and they would go like, and they'd come flying back, and I'd be like,
backwards.
"That's 40 rows from the fence. That thing is annihilated." You know, it was so frustrating at times. But I can only imagine as an outfielder having to catch those balls. You know, how do you read the wind at Wrigley? You know, is it an everyday thing where you're looking at the flags and you're like, okay, buckle up today because it really is the Windy City? Like, what's it like playing 81 games out and left?
I try to fight the analytics guys basically on a daily basis, whether it's our guys or like the general people that make up defensive runs saved and
Right.
and these metrics, because I'm like, listen, you got guys playing in LA or in domes, like we're out here fighting the elements. We're fighting Lake Michigan out here. And there's balls that are hit as hard as can be that are coming backwards, and there's balls that are tapped on days in the middle of summer that fly an extra 30 feet. And so, what we do, I had a really good mentor in Jason Hayward when I was coming up, and we got to play 6 years together and really build a rapport out there playing next to each other. And we communicated so much. We communicate on the wind. We're always reminding each other of where it is because it moves. It's not only, the wind could be one thing in the first inning and different in the seventh, and it's always swirling and moving. And so playing there for a long time, you kind of get a feel for how balls are going to react for different winds. And then you have the sun. So when you're in left, the first 3 innings of a day game are sunny, and it's right in your face.
Yeah.
And it kind of moves as the game goes. And so you're always communicating on sun balls, on wind. And it's a different beast. There could be balls. I'm sure you've done it before in your career. A left-handed hitter, you hit one, you're like, all right, that's 30 rows foul.
Yeah.
And by the time it comes down, it's coming sideways into left center. And
That's incredible.
that's what it is, and it's a beast, but it's part of the game. I think everybody saw the in the playoffs this year in Houston. Remember that game where they opened the roof?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And they were talking about it because Judge hit that laser to right field, and it wasn't a homer, and Bregman kind of got jammed, and it went out to left at like 92 because the wind was swirling. You watch that game, the routine fly balls, the outfielders are just running in circles to catch them. They're going, oh, and it's like, yeah, that's every day at Wrigley Field. Every single day.
Every
You open the
day.
roof one day, it's a mess out there. It's like, yeah, every day for 81 games. That's what we're doing.
Oh my God. It is true, man. I never forget when Sammy Sosa was dominating it was like probably 2000, 2001. Happer, we're playing obviously a day game, and he crushes one to left, and I'm sitting there like, wow, that ball's crushed. And I can see our left fielder takes a couple steps back, and then he starts coming in. And then all of a sudden I see Barry Larkin at short. It's all of a sudden over Lark. And I'm like, wow, it's over. Now it's coming to me, dude. I'm like, now I'm flustered because I'm like, wow, that ball's crushed. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's coming to me. So and Happer, I'm now in foul territory going towards the stands. And I'm like, and I clank it. I end up clanking. It's coming down. It's literally coming down like a tornado. I'm like, it looks like 4 balls are coming. It hits me, iron skillet, bam, pops out of my glove. And I remember thinking, how do these guys do this every day? This is ridiculous. The balls aren't supposed to do that.
I've said Wrigley has its own gravitational pull. When balls get up there at Wrigley in the wind, they come down. It might go up at 100 miles an hour. It's coming down at 200 because
Exactly.
it is nuts out there, and it never ceases to amaze me. Some of the balls you'll see during the year. I said I just did my recorded my podcast live at CubsCon last week, and I had
Right.
Mark Grace on.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Gracie and Bellinger at the same time. And I was asking about how hard it is to be a left-handed hitter at Wrigley, because I'm sure you saw throughout your career, like the
Oh,
wind, kind of the helping wind at Wrigley is like right to left.
yeah.
So as a lefty, if you pull it in the air, there's not a lot of days that it's flying pretty well out there. It's a beast to get it out to right. And Gracie was talking about, yeah, but I played so much of my career there, it made me a line drive hitter because balls in the air are outs. There's only been one guy in the history of Wrigley Field to hit 40 home runs as a left-handed hitter. Billy Williams did it once.
Wow.
Nobody else has ever done it in 115, 120 years because it's just such a beast with the wind.
Wow. Wow. I did not know that. It's funny you say that too, because I remember a lot of times the ball, whenever I would hit one to left center and the ball it would just gust out. And I'm like, oh man, you're right. As a lefty, you're almost better. If you could drive one to left center, you get more help than if you hit a bullet to right field. It just eats it up.
Yeah, I've always been a guy from a young age that kind of used the whole field from the left side, but coming up at Wrigley, it made me really drive the ball to left center because that's where the hits are. There's hits and homers to left center, and pull side, it doesn't fly the same. So I think you're a product of your environment, especially like as you're kind of figuring out who you are in the big leagues at the beginning of your career. And so it's made me very left center focused as a left-handed hitter there.
Yeah. Wow. Happer, I want to stay right there too, as far as like, as far as hitting goes, man. We've obviously loved talking hitting, a ton since you were obviously a young kid. How is your mentality now, man? Like you're 6 years in the big leagues, you've been around, like you're like the veteran. It's crazy. When I looked at that lineup, I started like, Happ's the one that the danger's on Ian Happ, and he's now the veteran in that lineup, which it blows my mind. How has your approach at the plate changed over the years, and how do you use what's the analytics that Ian Happ uses to make him a better hitter?
Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of progression for me just from like swing thoughts where I'm trying to hit the ball. Obviously understanding the league and the pitchers a lot better. Like that's kind of the
Yeah.
biggest thing as you go through and you get to play every day. One of the things that it kind of early in my career, that high four seam fastball came into the game, like that super spin rate pitch when guys were using, there was 2 or 3 years there where guys were using substance before, they started checking and getting the spin rates under control. But like you had to figure out a way to hit that pitch and at least foul it off and get yourself to the next one. So there's been a lot into my swing that's been, keeping my strengths of hitting the ball down, hitting off speed well, but also picking my spots where whether I have to get on top of a fastball or have to at least, really sell out to get to one. And that's kind of been the biggest change for me over the last couple of years is really being able to at least not feel like, hey, I need to hit a home run on this pitch, but I need to get one to get it out of the report, or like I need to foul that pitch off to stay alive to get to the next one. And like if a guy can put it there 3 times, good for you. I'll tip my hat and I'll move on. But like if I get to 2 strikes and the guy tries to do that to me, like I got to be at least able to touch it. So the big things that I use on the analytics side are there's one thing that I use for my swing. We have this amazing system at Wrigley. It's called Kinect Tracks, and it tracks every little thing that you do. It puts your body into a stick figure. It tells you all these angles and everything. So there's one thing with my right wrist hinge that is something that I pay attention to left-handed, because I know when that number is above league average, when that number looks really, really good, that's when I'm getting to my power. I'm not like leaking, the bat's not getting away from me and casting. Like that's one thing that I can look at as a metric that I've established. It's like, okay, if that's right, then I'm pretty good. The other stuff from the analytics standpoint is just pitch mix, like percentages. I look a lot at percentages. I look at what that guy throws 3-2, and then a lot of guys now, especially relievers, they might be 2 3 pitch guys. There's, some guys are 65% slider now, or
Yeah.
58% slider. Sometimes in a 3-1 count, that number jumps to 75. So you're always looking for stuff that jumps off the page. And
So
it's
will
like,
you do you sit like do you mostly work off the fastball or will you sit slider in certain situations?
there's definitely certain situations where you'll see that a percentage really jumps off the page with a guy, like runner in scoring position. This guy's throwing 80% sliders, and like at that point, if you know that, if I'm going to stay on the fastball, I might not see one.
Right.
And I might get myself, it might be slider, and I might be 0-2, and then this guy's got 96 in the tank that I don't know if he's going to use it or not.
Right.
So, there's definitely times when if the percentage is like nuts, that I'm gonna sit on something, or hey, this guy, is this guy's 0% in a situation where if there's runners scoring position, like first pitch, that's a 0% slider, 0% fastball, and then you can really start to gear towards something. But everybody's got 96 in their back pocket now, and like even if they have a nasty changeup or something, like it's there. So there's definitely times when you have to sell out to a pitch, if you think that's what you're going to get.
Do you feel like nowadays with the pitching, you said everyone's got 96, everyone's got 97. Do you pretty much do your eyes get used to that? I mean, are you able now? Like, does velo bother you at all?
No, I think that's the difference over the last couple years, is that you get used to it, but you also, like, your swing has to adapt to be able to handle it. Because if you just get your doors blown off, like, in the big leagues, like if you can't hit the heater, all you're gonna see is
Yeah,
you're just seeing
you're gone.
98 right down the
Yeah.
middle until you prove you can hit it.
Yeah.
And so, there's definitely, that was a big adjustment for me, and it kind of happened 19 to 20. And in 20, it was like, I got to be able to handle this pitch, and whatever that looks like, whatever that is for me, like I got to be able to, at least like that 98 that's jumping in the middle of the zone, like I got to at least be able to hit a rocket right back up the middle, so I can get to some of the other stuff.
Wow. Yeah, guys, it is amazing. That's so cool to like just hear what analytics you use, how guys attack. I know the analytics of like the percentages. You're right. If a guy's throwing you 80% sliders at a 3-1 count and he's trying to punch you out, you're not going to look, obviously look heater. What about? I want to stay with the Cubs this year because we talked to Rossi a little bit ago and we were asking about the acquisitions that you guys got this offseason. Obviously, you got Swanson for 7 years. I think that's a great pickup. Bellinger, Hosmer, Mancini, and Tyone, I believe. So obviously, it gives you a lot more. I always felt like when I had Griffey and Dunn and Kearns and some big dogs in the lineup, I'm like, this is great for me too. You know what I mean? Because we got some guys around all of us that we can kind of lean on. What's your feeling about the signings of the guys coming in? And the one guy I want to look at too is Bellinger. Do you think Bellinger has a shot to make that, get that comeback and be the player he was in LA?
Yeah, I'll start with the signings in general. I mean, just to be able to have a bunch of guys that have done it at a high level. You get guys all over the field that have been Gold Glovers. You got guys that have been All Stars, MVPs, um, and have really had a ton of success in the game. And so to be able, and been in different spots, so you get to pick their brain on like the things that they've done in their career, the things that they believe in that have helped them, which I think is always like a huge benefit. And then you get dudes that have done it and produced and like understand how to go through 162 and what it takes. Like one of the best stats on Dansby is like the guy played, I think he played 60 games in 20, which was all that we got. He played 160 in 21. He played 162 last year. Like he's
Wow.
out there. He's playing shortstop every single day. And like to have that guy that is going to be in the lineup next to you every day and like grind it out with you. So when you're 0 for 10, 0 for 20, that guy's still out there with you grinding it out. Like that's a big deal. And I'm really excited to kind of form that, whatever that lineup looks like, right? Like you get really comfortable when you're hitting in the same spot in the same lineup that's rolled out there every day. You know who the guy in front of you is, you know who the guy behind you is, you know how, like when that guy gets on base, when he wants to run, when if you hit a backside ball, like that guy's going to go for you and try to score, because it helps everybody. And I think like that is such a cool thing when you get in. Like I got to watch it with, I was kind of bouncing around the lineup, but like Riz and KB, like and Javi, and those guys were all playing 3-4-5 in the lineup. Like it was, Riz was trying to get to 100 RBIs, and like that meant KB was scoring 100 runs that year. You know what I mean? And like
Right.
you get to those guys get to really build off each other. And like if the guy behind me drives in 100, like that means I hustled my ass off, first to home on a bunch of doubles and like helped him out. And like that's the coolest feeling as a team when you really are invested in what everybody else is doing. And like that's how you get a really cohesive offense. But I think like Belly, that dude, I played against him in AAA when we were coming up in 17. I was like, wow, this first baseman is a first baseman that can run and like hits bomb. Like, what's this guy doing? And he is such an athlete. Like and we all got to watch that kind of 17, 18, 19 run that he had. And how good he can be. And I think when you're in a place for a long time, and you have a year or two where you're trying to figure it out and things aren't clicking, just to have that fresh perspective, to have a place where you can get away from all of the same stuff, and maybe it's the same hitting keys that aren't working or something that isn't quite clicking. And for a guy like that with that much talent, all it takes is one little thing to fall into place, to hit in the middle of the lineup every single day and feel like he's going to be out there and he's going to have that support. And I think that like that's, especially with the Chicago fan base, like that's going to be a really cool thing when he clicks it early in the year. Like he's going to be beloved there, and he's going to play that Gold Glove center field all the time, and it's going to be, I think, no shift too, because he hits the ball so hard on the ground sometimes. And like as a left-handed hitter, when you hit a couple lasers through the 4 hole, like it might not have been the prettiest thing you ever did, but when you're 2 for 4 in a day with 2 balls through the 4 hole, it's a lot different than being 0 for 4 with 2 groundouts to right field. You know what I mean?
It's the
And
worst.
that builds. It builds.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the things I've been talking to guys about with the shift. How's the shift going to affect the game? There's going to be a lot more confident left-handed hitters that can go up there and hook some stuff down the line and not be out. And that it's not only that you got a hit in that at bat. It's that you have a ton of confidence because instead of being 0 for 10, you're 3 for 10, and you're like, well, I can. That's a different ball game.
Ooh, that's so true. I just remember, dude, when I was coming up, obviously I'm a few years before you, but that four hole was everything. Like, especially guy gets on first, the first baseman's holding him on, dude. That's just a nice hanging slider or give me over fastball. Look, bam, hook him in. We got first and third. We got action now. Nowadays there's a guy sitting there. That's a ground ball.
When the guy in front of you walks as a left-handed hitter, and the guy in front of you walks, and you walk up to the plate, and you look out, and the third baseman's playing shortstop. The shortstop's just to the right of the bag. Then you have the second baseman in the 4 hole, and you have the first baseman. You go, and the wind's blowing in at Wrigley. You go, okay, all right. If I look out there, I can hit a laser line drive. Yeah, that'll work. That's easy to do.
Right.
It's like, all right, if I hit the ball in the air, I'm out. If I hit it on the ground, I'm out. I can either get jammed and fillet one to third, or I have to hit an absolute bullet down in front of the outfielders. And it's like that. There's not a confidence that comes from that. But when you get a guy on first, there's a big 4 hole there. The ball up the middle, just to the right of the second baseman, still a hit. You have all your line drives. You have the top spin. It's like, okay, now I have a lot of options. Now I can go out there and just swing my swing, and there's a lot more ways to get a hit. I think that is just the confidence that breeds being in the box. Like it's gonna really free some guys up.
Dude, what do you say to the guys that, I know people say, well, I don't like them switching the shift back because guys should just be able to beat the shift and hit a ground ball the other way. Like, what do you say when people say, just go the other way?
Yeah, it's not that hard. I say, imagine Max Scherzer with his 2 different eyeballs throwing 96 at your hip that leaks back, and then throwing the 88-mile-an-hour cutter right at you. And it's like everything's on the inside corner, and you're like, no, I got it. Let me just I was gonna hit it over there. It's gonna be really easy. Like guys don't make it easy for you to hit it over there. Guys don't just throw like a 92-mile-an-hour sinker that's just middle away. You can punch it over there. It's like you get in that situation where there's outs on the ground. Guys are sinking shit at the bottom of the zone. They're cutting it in on you. They're making it really difficult for you to get the barrel on the ball. And a lot of guys, when they're throwing this like 96, 98 mile an hour balls that have some life. If you start thinking the other way, you're under it or you're late. And you hit
Right.
a bunch of stuff in the dugout or back into the back of the net, and you're 0-2 before you know it. It's like
Right.
it's just such a tough thought to be, hey, I'm just gonna punch something over there, because before you know it, you get under a couple balls or a little late on a couple balls, and the league average 0-2 isn't very good.
Is it good? Yeah. And I always tell people it's just not that easy. And when they're shifting you, they're pounding you in. It's just not that easy to flip it to left. Because if it was, everyone would have been doing it the last
Everybody
7
would do
years,
it.
10 years.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I think like you'll see a guy who will hit, they'll hit a hard ground ball to left, or they'll hit a line, a line drive to left, and the announcer or whoever will be like, "Oh, that's a great piece of hitting. Like, look at that." Then you come back in and ask the guy, like, "Oh, you trying to go that way?" He's like, "Nope, that
No.
was I just a little late. It happened. It was awesome."
That's so great. That's so true. What about? I want to stay there on the rules. What about the pitch clock? What do you think about that?
I think it's definitely going to be an adjustment. I think you're
Yeah.
gonna in spring training, people are gonna see some some stuff that doesn't look like baseball. There's a little different. I think ultimately it's going to be better for the game. I think our pace does need to be better. I think we as a sport, as an entertainment business, like we need to put a product out there that's easier to consume, that's quicker. That people come to the ballpark with their families and you can get out of there in 2.5, 3 hours. Talked to a lot of guys in the minor leagues who, first month or so hated it, and then they love it, and then they're out of there quicker. The games have a better flow to them. I think it's at the big league level. There's going to be a lot of trying to figure out what the pitch clock and the two-step off rule means for base running. How
Yeah.
guys can get an advantage from it, and I think that's going to be really interesting to see, because in the minor leagues you don't get the same. There's just not as many people working on the problem, right? Like in the big
Right.
leagues, especially now, you have 500 people in the front office. You have so many analytics guys. You're looking at all of these things, and everybody's going to be trying to figure out how to get an edge off of when a guy pitches, or how to run after a guy stepped off one time. And so there's definitely going to be some ways to try to figure out how to game that system the best. And I think that we'll kind of figure that out over the first couple months of the season too.
Yeah. Will the bigger bases like make you steal more? I mean, 3 inches either way. I mean, it's a game of inches. How many times do we see bang bang at second? Now you're getting 3 inches on both sides. Will it? Obviously you can run. Will it give you incentive to run more?
Major League Baseball has really downplayed that one. Like they've really
Yeah.
downplayed the fact that the bases are bigger. I think there's two things that are pretty interesting about it. The one thing is that you are 4 inches closer, and that's a big deal. Like
Yeah.
how many, like four
Big
inches
deal.
in baseball that's the difference
It's
between
everything.
being like way out and safe. So
Right.
I think that is going to have an impact. I also think like sliding, like the old bases, when you're sliding in there and a guy's dropping a knee, or kind of like there's a foot in front, it's really hard to find a place to get on that base,
Yeah.
especially with replay, where if you're off by a centimeter, you're out now. So I think the bigger base is going to give base runners more room to maneuver and like really have a clear path to slide in. So I think that's something that hasn't been talked about a lot. The other thing, the base is slightly closer to the fielders as well. So some of those bang bang plays at first, I think the ball's going to get there just a little bit sooner, and like we're going to kind of see if there might be a couple less infield hits than we've had in the past. But I think it's good for base running, and I think stealing base is an exciting part of the game, and
Yeah.
like that the athleticism part, like having two guys up the middle who can really pick it, and like that if that guy's a base stealer, like how much more value do you get out of a guy that can really pick it, gets on base, and can run, than you had like, dude, a Cardinals Cubs game for the last 7 years with Yachty and Wilson behind the plate, not a lot of running going on. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Right.
to be able to give a little bit of an advantage to those base runners, and maybe that's a little bit more of an exciting product.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great, man. I'm looking forward to the rule changes. I think, Theo had a big part of it too. And whenever you get Theo's brain involved in anything, it usually turns out better. So I think it's going to end up being a good thing. Happer, what about you, man? And when you think about maybe a player or just a figure, who's been one of the biggest influences on your career?
Besides you?
Besides me, yeah, besides me.
Ah, man. A couple guys that I came up with. I think Johnny Lester was a massive influence on me about how to go about your business, how to be a pro, how to take care of people. Um, he took me under his wing really, really early and took such great care of me. And for a pitcher, like the way that he went about his work and his bullpens, like for a pitcher to have an impact on a position player like that is it's just speaks to like how good of a guy he is and then like how hard that he works. And then the other two guys, Rizzo, massive, he from day one put my locker right next to his, like taught me so much about posting, being out there, the challenges of playing at Wrigley, the challenges of playing in Chicago, the wind, like sticking with like, hey, April and May are going to be a grind, but like there's light at the end of the tunnel. It's a really long season, like all of those things. And then Jason Hayward as a guy that taught me how to play the outfield in big leagues. Was a mentor and one of the most generous, like loving teammates you could ever ask for. So those three guys through my career with the Cubs were just massive, massive influences.
That's great, man. Yeah, I know. Obviously, I know Riz was a big part. Johnny Lester, I was fortunate enough to play with Lester really his rookie year in 2008. And you talked about Josh Beckett. I know Beckett, the way Beckett worked, he worked so hard too. Lester kind of fell into that, and Lester was just like such a bulldog. So that's cool to hear that a pitcher could have such an influence on a position player, because that's not usually the case. That's not usually the case.
Yeah, you're basically playing a different sport from those guys. You don't
Yeah,
really,
totally.
you don't see him all that much. And Nico Horner has this great line where like the relief pitchers will come in after a game and like say some stuff or whatever, or something will happen, and he'll just look at me and be like, "We don't play the same sport. Like these guys are playing a completely different game than what we're playing." But I got to see at this weekend. I got to see Josh and John Beckett and Lester together. It's kind of the
Yeah.
first time I'd really seen them spend some time together, and I'm like, okay, all right, that's where
right.
that came from. Like that's these two guys. I can
Yeah.
see this now. These are the same
Yeah.
person.
That's so true. They are the same. They are totally the same person. What about Wrigley as far as the day games go? It's such an X factor that no one thinks of. I mean, listen, as we've had this conversation, I'm thinking about it, and you were talking about no wonder only four guys have ever won the Gold Glove that have played in Chicago. The elements are a factor. I know that because I played there, and I only played there 9 games a year, but also the day games. Can you talk about that? What's it like playing all those day games at Wrigley, and what's your routine? Do you have a different process for those days than you would maybe on the road in the night games?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Like I said about growing up at Wrigley as a big leaguer, like it shaped the way that I go about my work. And so one of the big things at Wrigley is like you take way less BP. So you don't, because you're not going to get out there at 9:30, to hit batting practice every day. So you take way less work on the field. And so it made me from a young age have to have a really locked in cage routine. And I'm so thankful for that because I feel like I can go into the cage for 15, 20 minutes and be locked in for a game. And so I have a very disciplined cage routine that's the same every single day, and doesn't
Dude,
deviate
I'm interested. What is it?
so when I go in, I'll just run you through a day game. So
Yes.
1:20 Friday game. I'll get to the park 9:30. I go straight into I have a posture therapist. We do kind of like a daily reset, right? So you're an athlete, you're throwing, you're hitting, you're so rotational. And
Mm,
so we reset my body every day to get back to zero, to get through the season. So I'll do 30 minutes with him.
wow.
We do like a FaceTime session. We'll do 30 minutes with him. Then I'll go in the gym and do 20 to 30 minute warm up. From there, I'll go down to the cage. So call it 10:30, 11 o'clock, right in there. I'll go down to the cage. I'll do my routine. My routine is I go in, I start left-handed off the tee, ball middle high,
Mm,
hit, 3, 4 of those until it feels good, drop it down to the middle, 3, 4 of those till it feels good, drop it down to the bottom of the zone, 3, 4 of those. Then I go away low, away high, 3-4, inside high, inside low, 3-4. Same thing right-handed.
Wow.
And so same thing, high, middle, low, and then low away, high in, low in. And then I'll go to flips. And I'll do front flips from there. And I don't take that many swings. Like front flips, I'll do 5 or 10 until it feels good. Like if I hit 5 lasers, good, right-handed, 5 lasers, good from there. And like that's it. And then I'm ready for the game. So I'll go back, shower, eat, get ready for the game for that 120. But like that's my cage routine every single day. And like I don't differ from it. Like if I need to do extra work, it's not going to be before a 120 game. Like it's going to be, I'm going to go out and take BP for our night games. I'm going to go out and do, we have a 7 o'clock game. I get to do early work at 2 where I go out and hit a curveball machine or a fastball machine or something like that. Like if I need to do extra stuff, like I know when I can do it and pick my spots to do it, but like I'm not going to be in there grinding, taking 200 swings before a day game, because I know like I've done my routine long enough and I've ingrained it, and like I have a really strong belief that like that's all I need to go hit in a big league game. And I think when you have established something that you really believe in and really feel like locks you in and gets you right, like that's such an advantage. And then like day games at Wrigley, man, you get 120, you get to go out to a nice dinner at 6 or 7, you're in bed by 10. Like it's like you're
It's like a
working a
real
normal
job. It's like a real job.
Yeah, you get to basically have a 9 to 5, and you get to enjoy the city. It's something that I think sometimes guys that have just play night games their whole career, they look and go like, how do you do that? Like for me, it's all I know, but I love it. I get to enjoy. I have a fiance who's from Chicago. We have a lot of friends in the city. Like I get to enjoy being a resident of Chicago for half of the year, and that's a really special thing, because Chicago in the summer is you can't beat it.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. That is cool. You don't think about that. It's like a regular job. It's like people are you're getting off work, so's everybody else. You
Yeah.
can go have a nice dinner. When you have kids one day, play with your kids, and
Yeah, and
that's
you
incredible.
can't figure out how people are at Wrigley at Friday at 120, but they always are. There's
I
40,000
know.
people there who decided not to work that day.
Yeah,
It's
even on
fantastic.
Wednesday, I'm like, what are
Yeah,
these people doing on a Wednesday?
man, it doesn't matter. They're there. It's like once school gets out, like end of May or early June, it's like people in Chicago are like, hey, it's warm. We just need to take advantage of it. I
Yeah.
don't care. I'll get the work done whenever, but it's finally 70 degrees here, and we're all going to go to the ballpark.
So great, dude. So great. Dude, before I let you go, I'd be, crazy not to go back a little bit because, like I said, man, we were hitting together in the cages when you were 17. I still remember giving you the mental keys of hitting a Harvey Dorfman. And are you still reading that, by the way, every once in a while?
It's in my backpack every day.
Yeah, it's so great, dude. It's
I gave it to Rossi this year. Rossi and I were talking about mental stuff and just about like, because young guys coming up and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, Case gave me this book. Feels like 100 years ago now, but like I read this thing, minimum once a year, but go back and check. Like, all right, yeah, I'm going through it. Like, let's go back, chapter 1, see the ball. Okay, there we go.
Right.
And so like, so
it matters. It matters.
Yeah, I shipped it in and gave it to Rossi towards the end of the year, and it's something that I've lived by.
That's great, dude. That's incredible. When I remember back to that time, and Pat McCloskey, we just talked about Eddie McCloskey. For everyone out there too, Happer went to Mount Lebanon, which is a town next to Upper St. Clair where I live, and he just went into the Mount Lebanon Hall of Fame with Donnie Kelly, former big leaguer, obviously bench coach now for the Buccos, Josh Wilson, former big leaguer, and then Eddie McCloskey, who was Pat's dad, and then you, which is the who's who really of Mount Lebanon baseball. Can you talk us about that a little bit, but talk about Pat too, Pat McCloskey. Just the guy is, I think there's no one in the world that probably loves baseball more than Pat McCloskey. So about his influence on you and what it meant for you, having him as your mentor in high school.
Yeah. So the Hall of Fame was super special. It was something like pretty emotional, actually. Like all of those guys, you're a young kid and you're looking up to these guys. Like Josh gave me the glove that I played shortstop with for the last 2 years of high school. Was like Josh Wilson's Easton glove. It was like, oh, this is big league glove. It's unbelievable. Like I was swinging his 34-inch Easton ash bats. Like, oh, this is amazing. Donnie was in the big leagues with the Tigers, when I was growing up, and then Josh was bouncing around. And you had Eddie Mack, who, from the time I was, 9, 10 years old, my brother was 6 years older. And so he was kind of going through the high school system when I was, younger. And I get lessons from Eddie Mack or go in the cage and hit with him. And I'll never forget, he had these traffic cones, orange traffic cone
Yeah.
with a rubber T sticking out of the top of it, and he would put the orange dimple balls on there, and you would hit in the Wildcat cage, and the ball would ricochet off the poles faster than you hit it. And it was the most dangerous cage in the world. But like, it was home for us. That's where a lot of my childhood memories are. Is my dad picking me up from school, with a milk crate full of baseballs, and going down to the cage while my brother was having high school practice, and hitting in the cage, every single day. And then when they were done, going on the field, taking ground balls or throwing in the outfield, and like playing long toss and seeing how far you could get it close to the little league field that was on the
Yeah.
back side of that.
Yeah.
Like, it's just all those things, and all those memories flood back. And I spent more hours in the Wildcat field vicinity, when I was growing up than anywhere else. And so to be able to kind of be with those guys, especially coming off like the All-Star game and the Gold Glove, and like to be able to come back and be introduced as like All-Star Gold Glover, and like it was such a special moment. But Pat, man, Pat McCloskey was our high school coach at Mount Lebanon. And his first year as the head coach was my brother's junior year. And so my brother played for Pat for the last 2 years. They were really close. And then a couple years later, I'm a freshman in high school. I'm 14 years old. And Pat, he took me under his wing right away. He was my lifting partner. He was he was probably 30 at the time, maybe 32. And he played baseball at Duquesne. He was always a psycho, so he was always working as hard as possible. And so I'm a 14-year-old kid, working out with him. And so he's crushing pull-ups. He's flat bar benching, 135, 225. I'm putting tens on, so like we're changing out like 6 plates at a time. I'm taking off 245s and putting on a 25 so that I can do my reps. Like, he's repping out 10 pull-ups and I have 6 bands and he's still lifting me up. But that was what it was. And he was obviously close to my brother, but he saw something really early. And he was there for me every step of the way. And my brother and my dad taught me what work ethic was, but Pat really saw that through, because Pat was the guy that was there with me every single day. And he would always open the gym for me. He gave me a key. He would be there to throw, to hit all summer long. Like, he was there with me every step of the way. And one of the things that I'm so thankful for with him is my freshman year, I decided I was going to switch hit full time. And I hadn't, I'd kind of hit righty up till 8th grade, but I'd worked on lefty. I'd worked on it. Wasn't pretty, but I'd worked on it. And so my freshman year, I said, you know what, I'm going to do this full time, and I'm not going to look back, and I'm going to do it. And the swing was a little gross. I would kind of get up on my toes. I was 14, 15 years
Right.
old. I was young for my grade, so I was 14, 15, 16. I graduated high school at 17. So I didn't have a lot of juice, but he let me hit left-handed. He texted my brother, actually. Chris told me this way later. He texted my brother and he said, "Hey man, I don't know about the left-handed swing." Like, and Chris said, just trust, just trust him, just let him go. Like, he's gonna be able to figure it out. And he let me hit switch the whole year. I had a good freshman year, but with no power. I played second base and hit lead off. But the fact that he didn't overcoach me, he let me go out and play, and he let me be a 14-year-old baseball player
Right.
and figure it out. And by
Figure
the
it
time I was a junior and Mike Wilson really helped me like figure out my swing at that point and hit some homers, like, then I got on to that path. So he was there every step of the way to help me physically, to help me mentally, but like, he trusted the process. And like, for a guy that lives and breathes it, he didn't overcoach it. And he was just my best friend for the entire thing, and my biggest cheerleader. And now he's out there with me. Every time we're in Pittsburgh, he's at the game. He texts me all the time. We're still so close. And I know that without him, I would not have ever been the player I am today. Like the even just the pure like attitude of like I'm going to be a Division 1 baseball player, and like that was the only thing that mattered. It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to be a big leaguer tomorrow.
Right.
It was like
Yeah.
I just want to play Division 1 baseball, and like it would be awesome to do it in a place that's warm, but like I just want to do it. And so there was never that, like I didn't think I was going to be a big leaguer at 14. Like I didn't care. I just wanted to be a Division 1 baseball player, and then from there but he was such a rock, and like the man, that work ethic was just insane.
Incredible. Yeah, man. You've been lucky to, you've been very fortunate to have the get people you've had in your life, from your dad and your brother and Pat and Eddie, and just a lot of great people. Before we go, bro, I want to say, what did this dinner mean to you? We, for everybody.
Yeah.
There's the dinner. You, me, Rizzo, Eddie Vedder, Chris Chelios, and Rossi and Jim Thome. Because before we had this group, you, me, Rizzo, and Jim Thome would do dinner every year at spring training. I used to love that dinner. And then Vedder, Chelios, and Rossi joined us. What do you remember about that dinner, bro?
Dude, so one of the coolest things, I you guys invited me to that dinner my first spring.
Yes.
And Riz and I got close right away, but obviously like I hadn't met Jim before, and Riz, I think you texted me, Riz texted me and was like, hey, we're gonna do dinner. It's like, I'm gonna do dinner with Case, Anthony Rizzo, and Jim Thome, like calling my mom, like, this is unbelievable. You gotta I'm going to dinner, and we have that dinner, and we do that for 2 years, and it's a tradition. And then the next year I show up, and it's like, hey, Eddie Vedder, Chris Chelios are coming to dinner with us. Yeah. It's like, and Rossi, it was like, oh my, this is the best. I don't know if I said a word the entire dinner.
I don't think you did.
Listened.
I'm like,
I was
like, are you gonna talk?
Oh, God. Yeah, I was like, is anybody taking a photo of this? This is the most amazing thing. That was the best, and that was right before COVID, right? It was right before we got shut down. I think it was
right
the last
before
one we
COVID.
did.
It was like a week before COVID.
Yeah, that was the last one we did. But that was the most unbelievable, and like those guys have all become friends. Like that's such a cool thing to say. Like now those guys are all buddies and guys that like when you see them, you say what's up. And Jim is the nicest person on planet Earth.
The nicest human alive, dude. You'd have no idea he hit 612 homers and has a statue of himself in Cleveland. You'd be like, oh, is this Uncle Jim? No, this is one of the best players ever in big league history.
To ever play.
To ever play.
And he was sitting at dinner, like the first time we had dinner, he's sitting there talking, hitting, just chopping it up, like what's your approach in the box? I'm like, Jim, I don't have an approach yet, okay? I've been doing this for 5 minutes. You have 600 pumps. Just tell me what you did, please.
So great, dude. I remember that. He's like, Happer, what's your approach? And he was like locked in. You're like, locked. I don't know, man. I just want to see it and hit it. I have no idea what I'm.
Yeah. Jim, I'm trying to go left center. If they throw me a slider, like maybe I'll pull that. But it's like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing yet. I'm 22. I have no clue.
22. What am I doing at this dinner? Yeah. So, oh my God, Happer, dude, incredible, man. Like I said, bro, I am so proud of you, dude. Just the journey that you're on and the journey that you're going on, man. There's many more years to come in the big leagues, many more All-Star games, Gold Gloves, and hopefully you stay out there in Chicago for a long time, bro. But I'm proud of you, man. I appreciate your time coming on today. Before I let you go, though, could you just tell us, man, how can our listeners find more of you? We know you got the Compound podcast. You're part of John Boy Media. Where can our listeners find Ian Happ? They obviously know how to find probably you more than know how to find me and Ginch, but there might be some people that don't know where to find you.
Yeah, so we got a podcast on John Boy Media. So we're anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever it is. It's called the Compound Podcast, and we've been doing it now. We're recording. Actually, we're gonna have Votto on tomorrow, and that's gonna be episode 145 or something. Wow, so dude. We've been going for a while. When did
you start it?
When we were shut down in 2020.
That's awesome.
We started up, and so we've been doing one a week. And yeah, we run Instagram, we're on Twitter, but yeah, check us out. It's pretty fun. Me and two buddies I played with. And we talk about baseball during the year and try to have as many guys on as we can and pick their brains. Votto's going to be a fun one.
That's going to be great, dude. Votto's going to be great, man. And we can also find you if you want to really find him, if you go to a Wrigley Field, he'll be in left field, just dominating.
Yeah, there's this piece of grass out there left. I'll just be standing in.
Yeah.
In the pasture out there.
In the pasture out Wrigley, dude. Oh man, well, Happer, enjoy the rest of the off season, dude. I'll see you at some point during the year, man. And like I said, brother, thanks for your time and love you, brother.
Thanks, Case. Appreciate it. Love you, man.
Okay, man.